Greetings, friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with your host, yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm so happy to be here with you again. Welcome to another week. I hope you guys are having a wonderful time. This is springtime. Many of us are doing some spring cleaning. There's been some transitions. A lot of us are also excited about the solar eclipse coming up next week. And so life is great. I hope that you are taking care of yourself. I hope that you had a wonderful weekend with family and friends and that you are also being gritty. So with that said, I'm going to get right into this podcast with you guys. I'm going to make some announcements first. First things first, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast, it will be featured on the X Factor EDU network with Dr. Matthew Joseph and the Tribe. There are so many great podcasts going on right now on the X Factor EDU network. So check that out. Thank you, Dr. Matthew, for the opportunity. And also visit the podcast on Spotify. I also wanted to encourage you again to follow me on Facebook. It's Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123. And my TikTok is Dr. India White. And Threads is also Indie238. So Threads and Instagram are like pretty much the same. Also, I have a new announcement about a Grit mini workshop that has just launched on the Grassroots workshop page. I know that, this is something new. We're super excited about it. And I'm so thankful for all of you that have already been purchasing it, looking into it, sharing it with your teachers and colleagues. Let's continue to spread the word about Grit so that we can help our students thrive. Also, I wanted to let you guys know that I will be seeing some of you in some upcoming events, including the Minnesota Council of Teachers of Mathematics. I will be there in April. In May, we'll be going to the Wisconsin Math Council as a keynote. I'm super excited about that and the Tribe in Wisconsin. And then there are some other opportunities that are coming up that I will be working with many of you across this nation. If you're trying to get me on your schedule, please email me while it's fresh. Email me. Let's get some things going. Let's do some professional development. Or if you're wanting me to come and speak, or you're wanting some one-on-one coaching, consulting, I'm here for you. So do not shy away. Let's make it happen. And if you're looking for some advice, this particular podcast is if you are trying to close the achievement gap, but you're having some classroom management issues, or if your students just aren't motivated to do the work, then this Grit and Equity Talks podcast is the perfect podcast for you. So we're going to be talking about various subjects on this podcast, and I'm so grateful for that. So with that said, I've been thinking a lot about, we're in April, we're finishing up the school year, and kids are going to start making some choices. And I want to really tailor this to not just math educators. I want to tailor this to high school educators, in particular, those that are dealing with seniors, because I want us to talk about this topic of the gritty determination for at-risk students, and not just at-risk, but with the focus of at-risk kids that are on the verge, on the brink of dropping out of high school, dropping out of school altogether. They're just done. I want to tailor this to you guys and to the administrators out there that are in the trenches as well, to everyone that has a part, a stamp on these students' lives. I'm telling you guys, listen, the data has already shown that we've had at least 2 million students that are dropping out of school, around 2 million that are dropping out of school every year. We cannot afford to be comfortable with those types of statistics and those types of reports coming back. We have to do something to stop this. We have to do something to intervene. So with that said, I want to talk a little bit about having a gritty determination and helping students with that gritty determination. So first things first, I always talk about what grit is. And I already told you, Dr. Angela Duckworth, she defined for us that grit is having the passion, perseverance to obtain long-term goals. I told you guys that grit is having great resilience in time. It's a short acronym that will help you. You can take it no matter where you are in life, no matter who you're dealing with. You can remember great resilience in time. So I hope that you guys are utilizing that acronym to help you as you're assisting students and leaders alike. Now, I want to get into some things because, we're talking about the gritty determination of at-risk students. And I'll share a little bit about senior year and why this is so critical. Even in my own life, my life was a little bit different because I was homeless. However, because I had grit, I was able to take that grit and make something out of it. And I would tell you the one thing you want to look for in students, especially your seniors, is what is their driving force and what is their goal in life. If there is not an ultimate goal for success, they are spinning their wheels, and that is an area of concern. And there has to be a sense of urgency to change it. I thank goodness for Sarasota County and how they handled me my senior year. By the grace of God, I was able to get out with 18 scholarships strong, full ride to Bill, from Bill Gates. Thank you, Bill Gates. And I was able to move forward as a math major, first generation. But I must say, it took a team, it took a village, it took teachers giving me reminders, it took myself writing goals and having deadlines and goal setting. And I even took those same ethics to college at the University of Florida, where I would use sticky notes and I would just write to myself, okay, deadline, deadline, deadline. Students need that type of urgency. They need that type of diligence and passion and determination, and they need others in their circle of influence to help them with this. So with that said, I'm going to just play a couple of different things to highlight that. And I'm going to also highlight an article that talks about what we can do to really motivate students so that they're not dropping out. And I'm going to do my best also to share just some data with us as you guys are here. So, all right. So first things first is we're going to talk about the dropout crisis first so that we just kind of get a big picture all together as to like what we're dealing with here. So this is talking about the dropout crisis, and then it's going to give us 10 strategies for student retention. So it says here, each year more than 1 million kids will leave school without earning a high school diploma. So that's approximately 7,000 students every day of the academic year. And that's being humble. They said at least 1 million. Yes, it's closer to 2 million, unfortunately. So they're saying you have at least 7,000 students every day of the academic school year are dropping out of school. Again, 7,000 students every academic school day. That is a problem. And then it talks about why is this a concern? Because without that diploma, they're more likely heading down a path that leads to lower pay, poorer health, and possible continuation of the cycle of poverty, which is very real and it can be felt. And all of us just want, and this is by Roberta Ferger. I want to give her credit. Okay, so all of us want the best for our families and for the community, right? So this is very cringing when you think about these things. Now, it goes on and says, for some students, dropping out, it's the culmination of years of academic hurdles, missteps, and wrong turns. We're going to look in another article that talks about different findings as to what is really attributing to why students are dropping out. And they might even mention some here. And then it talks about how dropping out is sometimes it's all about that student being bored. Listen to this. And seeing no connection. They see no connection between academic life and real life. That's that numeracy we've talked about. How are you connecting the math to the real world, or whatever the subject is, to their real world, to their real world? How are you creating that relevance? How are you creating a sense of belonging and an empowering student voice? We have got to connect our students. We've got to figure out a way to keep them engaged and also to make them determined and gritty. So let's keep going. So that it's talking here, there was a report by the California Dropout Research Project, and it talked about how there's economic and social impacts of failing to finish high school in the Golden State. And it talks about how graduates that, from graduating from high school, they earn an average of nearly $290,000 more. Look at that. Than dropouts over their lifetime. So they earn, just with the high school diploma alone, you're getting at least $290,000 more. I was getting coffee at the gas station, and I met this man, and I was asking him because he had on one of those, what do you call it? Those like yellow kind of like highlighted things. And so I just started asking him questions, and I said, yeah, well, what do you do? What's your profession? And he's like, well, I work on railroads. And he got so excited. I said, so tell me about it. And I'm into numeracy. I'm into real world connection. And he's like, yeah, I didn't go to college. He's like, I did go, I did graduate high school. And then after high school, he said I went to a course and it took a week long in Atlanta. It's railroad school. And they teach you how to build railroads and how to pour um, uh, some substance so that when the railroad tracks are there, it stays and it doesn't change no matter the condition of the weather. Whether it's hot, cold, if it's raining, whatever, that the railroads will be intact. I was so intrigued with this. And I asked him, I said, so how much math do you use in something like that? Like, he's like, oh, well, we use a lot of measurements. He's like, and if you get those measurements wrong, he's like, it's going to be a bad day because, God forbid something happens and those measurements are off, everything's going to go off the tracks. You're going to have catastrophe. And he's like, yeah, we use a lot of math. We use a lot of measuring. And he's like, but I love what I do. And then he just got super excited. And he's like, I make really good money, like close to six figures. And he's like, some people make over six figures and without college, and I'm not, he wasn't encouraging like, to not pursue higher education, but what he's encouraging is at least finish high school. And sometimes the struggle is students that do not see that they can go to college because whether it's finances or maybe they're behind in credits or maybe something has come up, some type of life event, they feel like there's no way for them to be successful in the real world. And this guy was paving a way towards a realistic job opportunity, a career opportunity where students can still thrive, even if they choose an alternative path besides higher education. The thing is, we as educators and principals and leaders, we have to be in the face of these students, providing them these options. And I've written about this, and I've spoken about numeracy. I've spoken about these different things because the kids don't feel like there's a connection between themselves and the real world and these careers and math, for instance. And so let's get back to this guy's story. His face lights up, and he's like, oh my gosh, and they provide a pension, for me and for my wife. And, if something happens, we're going to be okay. And, we're able to save. And I'm like, oh my goodness, look at you. Like he figured life out after some hurdles in the road. And for whatever reason why he did not choose a college path, thank goodness he was able to still have enough grit and enough rigor and determination to still make something out of his life. That is where we are today. We have to slow down enough to start having these real conversations with our students. He even spoke about how he did some welding back in the day, and how welding then led him to doing more things at the railroad tracks. I've heard about people going into lineman work, linemen making lots of money, men that work on trees. And there's so many different things that we can really introduce students to, all of these alternative paths. The problem is we're not having those conversations enough. So we have to start having these conversations with our students and figuring out, we got to get nosy. Where are you going to school, or what are you doing next? If it's I don't know, okay, pull out 3 dreams that you can give them and let them ride the coattails of those dreams that you crafted for them as a leader until they're able to figure out the one that they can really take over with. So with that said, I'm going to get back to this article because, they're talking about, these students and the dropout crisis and what we can do to end it. And so let's get back to here. So they're saying that similarly, even with the guy that I told you about, they're going to make at least $290,000 more than someone that has dropped out of school, and 68% less apt to rely on public assistance, right? And so this is just very interesting. And then you go down here and it's talking about how there's an analysis on the Alliance, by the Alliance for Education, or for Excellent Education. And it talks about that by having the 2010 national dropout rate, there was an estimated 1.3 million students, that year, that the new graduates would likely earn a collective 7.6 billion with a B, more than an average year, or more in an average year than they would with the high school diploma. What they're saying here is we are wanting better quality of life for all of our students, and helping them to graduate is key. They've given us some tips. Let's look into it. What can we do to help our students to not drop out of school? For one, engaging engaging and partnering with parents. I cannot stress this enough. Teachers, leaders, if the parents are not on board, we are doing something wrong. Now, I know there are special cases where maybe the parent is just not in the picture, or the guardian is not in the picture, and you've reached out. I'm talking about those that you've got a set of parents, or a hardworking single mom, single dad, whatever, and you're still not actively trying to communicate with that parent. Something is wrong. We must have parents on board. This is not a us versus them. This is a we collective thing where we are all striving to help students to be proficient and successful. So we've got to get parents involved. It talks about here 68% of the high school dropouts who participated in the study said their parents became involved in their education only after realizing the student was contemplating dropping out of school. Students need us all the way through. And I want to say something. I think we get deceived as parents because we think that because the students are older, that they don't really need us as much. So remember when, for parents and guardians, when the child was younger, pre-K, kindergarten, do you remember how much you invested? You brought tissues to school, hand sanitizer, pencils. You brought extra packs, extra snacks. You were at every parent meeting, right? You came to all of those after school events. Like, you did everything. You were right there at the front for their graduation. You were there. You were there. Homework, you assisted that baby, right? And then senior year, what happens? I'm telling you, it's a deception. Many parents feel like, oh, well, I don't really need that. They don't really need me that much. Yes, they do. And we're starting to see that. Just in this report, the student said, oh, well, they just started getting back involved. Students love it when we show up. They love it when we show up at their games, when we show up at the dinner table and say, hey, pull out that homework. Especially math rock stars out there, when you're able to pull your child, to the side and say, okay, let's talk fractions. Let's talk systems of equations. Let's talk quadratic functions. They love that. And it turns out students actually learn more and they learn better from their parents than they do sometimes their own educators. So never underestimate getting the parents involved and getting the parents on board, because they need that. But I think sometimes we as educators, we have to remind parents of the power that they have in their role and the importance of their role, and that they matter. We have to communicate with parents, even if it's a simple remind app like Remind System or a simple email. And it doesn't have to be anything wrong. It's just that you're reaching out and you're keeping that connection. Don't let that connection die between you and the parent and guardian. Do what you can to keep the parent on board and at the table with you, because you don't want to fight this alone. Now, let's keep going. So then they talk here. They're talking about Sacramento, California. There's a high school staff members. They make appointments with parents for voluntary home visits to keep parents engaged with the children, plus the District of Columbia. They include placing as many visits as possible during summer and fall to parents of teens that are entering the high school. So they're very hands-on. And then there's here in Sacramento, a program by Paul Tuss of Sacramento's County of Education, Office of Education. And it talks about how students who received a home visit were considerably more likely to be successful in their exit exam intervention and academic support classes, and to pass the English portion, right, of the exit exam. So this is very powerful what they're doing in Sacramento County Office of Education. So we need to make sure we're having those parental involvements. Okay. Next step, they said here, cultivating relationships. Whenever, this is powerful, because if a student feels like they can trust you and they believe you, that you really do want the best for them, they're going to perform. It's kind of like, it reminds me of when you have a garden or you have, just a situation, even a pet, anything. And let's go with a garden. You plant a flower. One thing I love about gardening is it gives you more than you expected. It blossoms, it produces. And I'm going to be honest, I think the human spirit is the same way when it's in good soil. And so, if we're wanting our students to blossom and to perform and to outshine and to outdo our expectations, we've got to build and cultivate relationships. That takes pulling out the weeds, right? Pulling out the negative weeds are like the fixed mindset, negative thoughts, negative things people have said. We've got to fertilize. We've got to put in some good grit, some reminders, some growth mindset. We've got to love on those kids, give the watering and helping them and nurturing, keeping hands on during the whole time so that they know that they're not alone. Even in a garden, you don't want to leave a plant alone for more than 2 weeks, without water or anything. I mean, good luck. I mean, unless it's like a weed or like a bush or something that, is already, but when you're talking about something that's more fertile and more sensitive and needs more hands-on, you want to cultivate and you want to attend to even a plant, more than just, once a week. So I think that we should do the same when it comes down to, working with parents and working with students and building those relationships. So, all right, now let's get back to the next point. So the next point that they told us, now they said, pay attention to the warning signs. Huge here. Project U-Turn, a collaboration among foundations, parents, young people, and youth serving organizations such as the school district and city agencies in Philadelphia. Go Philadelphia. They grew out of research and they analyzed a variety of data sources in order to develop a clear picture of their dropout problem. And then after looking at that, they were able to see that the predictors who were most at risk of not graduating. And so from that, they're going to share that they had, it looks like they said they had these key indicators of a failing English or math student. For one, being absent more than 20% of school days. Huge. That's huge. 2, earning fewer than 2 credits during ninth grade and or not being promoted to 10th grade on time were significant factors of students dropping out and not graduating. Interesting. So if you're teaching high school, those are some things that you want to look out for. So basically looking at their senior year, it might just be a little bit too late, even though turnaround school principals, turnaround leaders, math coaches, district intervention specialists and things, they have a hand on that, where they're able to really kind of help turn it around in a short time. But we don't want to wait till we're in moments of crisis. So we've got to do what we can to look at this. I mean, looking at, who's behind on credits, implementing reading programs for students that were well below grade level is key. So then that leads us to the next point that they gave us. They said here, you've got to make learning relevant because boredom and disengagement are 2 reasons why students stop attending class. And I'm telling you this right here, this is going to cause teachers to have to get out of their comfort zone. When I first started teaching, I remembered I was very shy, believe it or not, very just kind of closed in. And I was a rule follower and, I just did everything. I put a lot into it. But I started noticing that when I was teaching, their eyes would start to glaze over. Like it was too much. It was over their head. And then I would start giving surveys and oh my word, some kids would be like, man, this is like a college class. This is like a college class. Like you're teaching way too much or too fast. And so I had to cater to my students and adjust my teaching so that I was able to engage them and keep them on task. And I learned to do some questioning, probing through questioning, scaffolding, slowing down enough, having that wait time so the students knew that I cared enough about their proficiency and their competency. I don't need to know, like, I'm not doing this for me. Like, I know the math. It's not for me. It's for them. They're the ones that need this. So I had to make sure that I was like cultivating my math soil, right? And fertilizing it and giving them all the things that they needed, not just throwing a bunch of math at them and then saying, oh, I don't know what happened. I taught them. I don't know what's going on. No, I had to slow down enough to make sure all the students were on the same page and that they all could be successful in the class. And so I want to encourage you guys to do the same, is to figure out how can you engage your students. Listen, it's April. Many of you are going to be doing end of the year reviews, end of the year projects, I hope. And you'll be doing some just last minute reviews to make sure that they're proficient for the next grade level. this is a great time to slow down enough and to maybe have a survey and figure out what the students think about your teaching. And, are you able to really engage with them and to connect with them? What do they want their classroom learning experience to feel like? How do they want to feel when they enter? How do they want to feel when they leave? It's imperative because it's about them, right? So I would highly encourage all of you to get on, to hit the ground running with this. Pull up your bootstraps, hit the ground running, and just go in. If I was still, in your shoes, I would definitely be doing some boot camp, some math boot camp, end of the year things, some math projects, where I'm really getting those formulas going, getting those concepts going, those definitions, and loving these kids through this so that their last memories of math is an amazing one and we can send them out with a bang, in a good way. So those are some things I want to encourage you with, so that whenever you're teaching your students, you can be assured that you're sending them off proficiently. Now, there's other examples here, and I'll share this with you guys if you want it. The next tip that they gave us is to raise the academic bar. San Jose, California, the San Jose Unified School District, they implemented a college prep curriculum for all students in 1998. And it looks like this is helping with the graduation rates and things like that. The next tip they said is to think small. So it says, for too many students, large comprehensive high schools are a place to get lost rather than to thrive. And so very interesting. They have a report here funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation where they looked at 123 small schools of choice. And so the report showed that there was higher graduation rates at the new schools compared to those with much predecessors. And so we've got to start thinking small as to how we can reorganize those large schools into small learning communities to help our students. And then tip 7, rethinking class schedules. And it talks about how for some students, the demand of a job or family responsibilities makes it impossible to attend school during a traditional bell schedule. Very interesting. So providing various flexibility and options for classes and ways that kids can, finish their work is key. All right, tip 8, developing a community plan. This is key because getting the community involved is really going to help so that they can see the big picture. And if we need funding, if we need donations, I know Hillsborough County has some great things going on where we've got leaders in the community that are donating different things. Shout out to those leaders. I just saw that the other day, donating, different resources for students, that their offices are no longer using and things like that. Okay, and then tip number 9 here, it says investing in preschool. Very powerful. But, when you think about it, it starts at the beginning, and so they're talking about investing in preschool and how preschool is an early investment in youth that yields significant economic results later on. So they did some more studies in California, and they found that one preschool increased high school graduation rates by 11% and another by 19%. Powerful. If you're not talking preschool, you probably should start talking preschool. And then the last tip that they gave us here in this article is to adopt a student-centered funding model. And it talks about how research shows that it costs more to educate some students living in poverty or ELL students or students with disabilities. And it talks about how flexible funding enables schools with more challenging populations to gain access to more resources so that they can take the needed steps, such as reducing class size and whatnot, to help our students. So those are some tips that they gave us when it came down to really kind of helping students with, making sure students are determined and making sure that we had what we needed for our students. I'm going to play one video for you of a scholar who actually graduated. So before we start, this kid graduated as a valedictorian of Booker T. Washington High School. His name's Deontay Bridges. Very powerful. And I want to leave us with this as a hope as to this is what we can bring our students into.
Poet, Langston Hughes. Life for me ain't been no crystal step. I have been negatively stereotyped by society, enticed with drugs, overwhelmed with my mother's diagnosis with leukemia, robbed at gunpoint, and experienced the death of my brother.
So this child, I know we're watching this, but just to think of how much grit he's had to have with all of his personal obstacles is powerful.
Despite attacks, splinters, and torn boards, still, I rise. I did not allow my personal problems to serve as excuses because I understood each problem has a solution, and that solution lies within me.
That's where grit kicks in. And I love how he said that. The solution lies within him. He didn't let his personal problems get the best of him. And that's what we have to do. We have to help our students as they're overcoming those personal problems towards graduation.
My faith in God and my ability to overcome adversity and make rational decisions has resulted in my academic success. I am committed to education, and I choose to do what is necessary, not what is popular. I stayed up until the wee hours of the morning completing assignments.
Wow. He stayed up to the wee hours of the morning. Very gritty. Nobody told him to do that. No one forced him. He knew what he wanted, and he had a passion towards long-term goals.
I met required deadlines, and I embraced the challenges of several advanced placement courses. Without the grace of God, the nurturing of my parents, Paris Hardaway, and the commitment of educators, I would not stand here today as an Anti-Defamation League unsung hero.
I just think it's powerful that he even mentioned the educators in his speech as a factor towards his persistence. So be encouraged out there as you're watching this to know that there's hope even for students in your classroom today.
A Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity and Omega Psi Phi fraternity scholar, recipient of the Gates Millennium Scholarship, which will cover all of my expenses for my undergraduate and graduate studies. Had I given up, I would not stand here today as a possessor of more than $1 million in scholarship funds.
So we can watch this. I can watch this all day with you guys. I think it's pretty powerful that this young man has accomplished so much, and I'm sure he is a rock star today. I'm actually going to see, what he's up to now. I'm going to, do a little digging and see where he's at in his life. But thanks for listening to that, and thanks for letting me share this podcast today, where we're talking about gritty determination of at-risk students. We've gone over tips, and we left here with a wonderful, encouraging video of a student who rocked it out of the ballpark because of grit. So with that said, do not give up on these students. Know that your impact does matter. Continue to build those relationships and help your students thrive. Now, with that said, I'm going to wrap this show up. So again, reminding you that the Grit and Equity podcast, it will be featured on the X Factor EDU, and it also will be on Spotify. So check us out on the X Factor EDU network with Dr. Matthew Joseph. And then also, please make sure you follow me on social media when you get a chance. My Facebook handle is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter's Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram's Indy238. YouTube is India White 123, and TikTok is Dr. India White. Make sure you check out my Grit mini course when you get a chance. I would love for you guys to check that out and give me some feedback as to what you've learned, what you want more of, and beyond. And I hope to see you guys at some of these upcoming events from Minnesota in April, coming up in a couple weeks, Wisconsin in May, and beyond. And just know that I'm here for you. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in on the Grit and Equity Talks on the Grit and Equity Talks cast. Thank you for tuning in to the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with me. And until next time, stay gritty. See ya.